3-0 this weekend for Aston Villa as they took on Newcastle. That is Newcastle's heaviest defeat of the season. And it comes at the hands of a Villa side who the numbers say are utterly transformed since Unai Emery walked through their door. I mean, I can list the stats, but it's night and day, Benji. Night and day.
Yeah, and looking at all the managerial comings and goings,
yes,
it feels like right now we are. I mean, with respect to Dean Smith, who I know has done great things, we are sort of at the bottom of the barrel. It's pretty clear now that Unai Emery was the top of the barrel. Maybe followed not too far away by Lopetegui. He's been extraordinary there.
All right. Only Arsenal have picked up more points since Emery took over at Villa Park. They've had the same number of wins as Man City, which, given the run they're on, is pretty extraordinary stuff. And who's the standout performer, Daniel?
It's always Ollie Watkins at the moment, who is, more goal contributions, which feels a kind of modern phrase. Goals plus assists in the Premier League. No player has more in 2023. He's one ahead of Erling Haaland, which, again, given Haaland's run, you just said 14 goals in 6 games in all competitions, is monstrous. And he just, I think what's really interesting about Watkins is Emery started by saying, look, I want you to be a central striker. I don't want you to run the channels. I don't want you to get involved in all that. I want you to concentrate on scoring. And I'm so sure you're going to do that. I'm going to sell Danny Ings, which he did, and it's worked. And over the last couple of games, we've just kind of seen Watkins having got the scoring sorted and enjoying himself and confident in front of goal. We're actually seeing the other bits of the game coming back. So he was against Villa. So against Newcastle, he was running the channels again, but still getting in the centre. His header for the first goal is one of the most underrated assists of the season, I think, because the ball comes in and he's basically 4 yards out of goal and thinks he can head at goal. And he realises just with about sort of half a second before the ball comes, he realises he's not going to be able to get a powerful header away. So he completely twists his neck and manages to kind of, I don't know, just sort of let his body hang in midair and just knock it down for Jacob Ramsey, who sweeps home. And that's the sort of thing you don't think about that. That is completely instinctive, and a striker only does that when they're in great form. Interestingly, I interviewed a striker coach a few weeks ago called Scott Chickleday, who works with various players from Premier League, EFL, non-league, just a striker coach in terms of mentality and finishing. And he's worked with Watkins extensively. And I love it when a player goes above and beyond to kind of make things work, to make themselves better. And I think that's what he's done. He's England's form striker at the moment. I mean, he'll never get an England team ahead of Harry Kane for obvious reasons, but he's ahead of Tony and he's ahead of Callum Wilson by a country mile now.
He must be cursing the Winter World Cup more than any other player, Ollie Watkins, because he would be absolutely nailed on that. It's interesting what Daniel says about the additional coaching. This is maybe me putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5, but you just feel like somebody who wasn't raised in an elite academy, somebody who was on loan at Weston-super-Mare in 2015, wants to grab the chance of being a Premier League striker with both hands and is prepared to do those extra things, even though his academy training was at Exeter and not Manchester United or whatever.
It's same with Tyrone Mings at Chippenham, played for Chippenham Town in his youth, and he's probably the player who's improved, along with Watkins, improved the most under Emery. He seems to have this not only leadership ability, but also a huge amount of versatility in terms of whether he's playing out from the back, whether in terms he's kind of winning headers, whether he's low block defence, whether he's asked to push up the pitch. He still makes errors, Mings, because he wants to do everything, but he's in great form as well.
I was impressed by Alex Moreno again as well. I think since he's got 3 assists since the turn of the year. No defender's got more than that. He's in the sort of top 5 for key passes, successful take-ons. Remember it was Lucas Dean was supposed to be the big left back signing when agent Stevie nicked him from Everton. But yeah, Alex Moreno is easily keeping him out the side. He looks really good.
You saw Newcastle come and do a very large number on West Ham not too long ago. How impressed are you that Villa were able to do this to them?
Very.
Right.
Well, I mean, as I sort of keep saying, West Ham aren't that hard to beat.
Similar colours, though.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure that was a factor here. But it's probably the weakest I've seen Newcastle all season.
Right.
But that wasn't just an off day for them. That was Villa being pretty rampant.
How long can it last? How far can Villa go?
Well, what are they? 6 points off the top 4, but they played a couple of games more. They do go to Old Trafford, so they need to win that if we're putting them in that conversation. But I think you'd be surprised if they weren't in the Europa League next season from this point.
Right. But do you think Emery can sustain this level, maybe not this level of performance, but or do you think there's a certain element of bounce still in this?
There's probably an element of bounce. I guess that whether he can sustain it will be dictated to a large extent by what they're going to do in the transfer market over the summer. But yeah, I mean, he's the manager that Chelsea should have appointed, isn't he?
Right. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.